Welcome to Celestia Astrology. I'm Sonia. Let's talk about the Pisces lunar eclipse today. Here's a guide to how I see this as the clarity before the release. That's because on August the 27th, Mercury is meeting the Sun at 4 degrees of Virgo, just hours before the lunar eclipse lands in Pisces. The Sun is in Virgo, and opposite, we've got the Moon in Pisces. So in that moment, just hours before, when Mercury is in what we call a Cazimi with the Sun, it's known to be entering the throne room of the king. It's an honored meeting, a reset of the agenda between Mercury and the Sun. And Mercury is the messenger planet of our minds, our thoughts and our communication, how we formulate those thoughts into words, how we share those ideas, thoughts and words, and how we receive information as well, how we share it with other people. So if this eclipse is affecting your chart, then the Mercury Cazimi will as well. You'll be getting this reset in the way that you're thinking and exploring and sharing ideas at the same time as the lights going out. And when they come back on, just like a computer resetting, turning it off and on again, something changes. So what is changing for you? It might become plain through a conversation that you have. It might be a message that you receive, and that can be in many ways, through a dream, through a conversation. Maybe you hear a song that you've always known, but somehow it clicks and you understand it differently. It might be a fact that you've known or that you suddenly can't ignore. Maybe it's just a quiet knowing, the new understanding. It's time now to trust that clarity as it comes, because it's planting seed for what you need to release. And that's because lunar eclipses are often experienced as releases, but also the last one of the Pisces Virgo that we've been traveling through for the last 2 years. Since 2024, we've been having these eclipses. They first started as outer sign eclipses, and now it's the same thing. An outer sign eclipse in Pisces, just concluding that work that we've been doing. So August 28 is bringing this lunar eclipse at 4 degrees, 35 minutes of Pisces, and that is the release. But often it's very quiet. We might not know. It might unfold. Quite often eclipses don't bring an instant event, but sometimes something is seeded that then unfolds quietly over time. You might be being asked to let go before you've actually got the answer of where you're heading. And that fits perfectly with the decan that we're working with as well. This is the 10-degree segment of a sign. Each sign, so say for example, Pisces is divided into 3, and each 10-degree segment of the sign has its own stories, its own kind of landscape that we can feel into, and its own rulers as well, decan rulers, that tell us more about what we can experience in that decan. So we're going to look at how to receive that clarity. Maybe there's some bittersweetness coming up. Maybe you're feeling some grief even with Pisces. It can be quite deep, those feelings that we explore, and also how you can look to navigate that road ahead. This eclipse just wants you to sit with where you need to trust your inner light as well, not to solve everything all at once, but just to proceed with faith in what you already know to be true. This is a partial lunar eclipse where it is the Earth that's casting the shadow. The Earth is between the Sun and the Moon, and it's casting its shadow onto the Moon. And if you go to a website called timeanddate.com, you can enter your location and you can see what time it will be visible in your area. And it also shares an animation where you can see what parts of the globe will be able to see the Moon as she reddens. So we see the Sun in Virgo at 4 degrees. And opposite, we've got the Moon and its conjunct the fixed star Fomalhaut, which is a royal star. And this opposition contains a lot of the lesson for us. Virgo is discerning and practical. It looks closely. It sorts out what helps us from what doesn't. It's in the present moment, looking at what's right in front of you, while Pisces is feeling all of those deep feels, the longing underneath it, the hopes, the losses, the things that effort alone can't fix. And when these two meet in an eclipse, it's like a sense of something old has to give way. So this eclipse is closing this chapter that's been unfolding since 2024, when the eclipses first started landing in this axis of Pisces and Virgo. And this is happening in a part of your chart, but also in a part of your life where you've got these 2 houses, and also where those rulers of Jupiter for Pisces and Mercury for Virgo are placed. You might think back to your emotional weather of this entire period. Notice where you've been trying to hold things together. Maybe where effort or doing something has become a way to avoid those deeper feelings. And maybe where faith carried you, faith in yourself or faith in other people, trust in the journey or the process carried you where a plan simply just wasn't enough, where you just needed to leave those plans and just trust that you've done enough. These questions matter now because that release is almost here. It might be that it's a job or a health routine, a relationship. It might be your creative calling or your responsibilities that have changed shape. And that might have happened more than once over the past year and a half. Virgo carries this heavy standard. It's about this impossible to obtain perfection, unattainable perfection, I call it, where if it believes that everything depends on getting it right, it's like that bar just keeps getting higher. And that standard is part of what this eclipse is softening, really, realizing where we're human and we are allowed to make errors. Pisces is asking you to stop and go with the flow more. And that can bring up old longing, the belief that waiting longer is going to settle any uncertainty that you're feeling. Maybe you show up rescuing people who haven't actually asked you for help. And then you might feel empty when the care that you're lavishing on them isn't actually changing them and they resort to their old patterns. We sometimes have to learn to step back and allow that because they're on their own path too, as much as we are. And we have to learn when that care is appropriate. Compassion needs boundaries. It's such an important lesson. We can feel that endless compassion, but where do we place the actual action that we take? And we need a safe container for that. And that's what Virgo gives us. Otherwise, we lose track of what belongs to you, where you start and end. And navigating this journey means knowing where your own energy ends and where another person's begins and allowing that. Pisces can wander, and that's one of the keywords for this decan, because choosing a direction means grieving all those other paths that you didn't take. Sometimes saying yes also means saying no to the other options. Or even not making a decision is also saying no. Sometimes we think if we delay the decision, it's easier, but actually that in itself is a decision as well. And sometimes Pisces can check out of this material world through fantasy or overthinking. That's a form of procrastination, but it's also disengaging, maybe through spiritual language or romance, through entertainment or dreams that don't quite work with a fixed calendar. There's no shame in that. We all need that sometimes, but it's like, have we got that balance right? Have you got the balance between finding some of that, but also engaging with the world that we actually live in, finding that groundedness as well, looking at what we're actually avoiding when we do this. When does that happen? How often? What happens? Virgo is bringing us back to these small acts that help us build our actual life. We may not realize it, but often our lives, our routines are built through these small daily acts. The meals we choose, the emails we respond to as opposed to the ones that we don't, where we choose to take our daily walk and for how long, booking the actual appointments that are needed, naming our limits, setting our boundaries. That care becomes real when it takes shape and form through those small decisions. It sometimes doesn't show up as a big decision or a pivotal moment. Sometimes it's in those small acts of regular daily care. So it's trusting and proceeding with these small steps because sometimes they carry more weight than we realize. So this first decan of Pisces, Pisces I, is a Saturn and Jupiter ruled decan. So we've got Jupiter ruling the sign together with Venus, and then we've got Jupiter also ruling the decan. So there's an enhancement of this Jupiterian faith, trust and wisdom that Jupiter brings that's so prevalent in Pisces. This, I just know, I just trust, and I'm going to follow that path. But it can be hidden, which is what makes it difficult. This is why trust is needed, because if you can't see the path, you're trusting in something else, something higher, or your inner knowing, what do you trust in? And it also links with the Eight of Cups card in the tarot that shows a person turning their back on these 8 cups that appear to be full. They hold meaning for that person, feelings, resonance, but maybe staying no longer feels honest, and they know that they have to do something different. They have to follow a different path. They have to tread into different landscape. And equally, Austin Coppock calls it the Labyrinth. And when you think about quite often we go into these mazes as a little bit of fun, but how do you feel when that moment comes when you actually realize that you're genuinely lost and you just have to surrender and just keep turning and turning and following these different paths and seeing where they take you. The best ones are the ones where you can't use your mind to logic your way out of it. That would be a Virgo thing. And you just think, okay, I'll just keep turning. And then you realize you're back exactly where you started and you've been this way before. And then you're like, okay, I'll try something different. Maybe that takes you back, but you can't see the whole pattern. You can only see the next turn. There's high walls around you or high fences, high hedges, like this path is hidden under snow in the car being shown. You can't see everything. So you're having to trust something else. But we all do find our way out. Nobody gets stuck in them forever. We do find our way out. How do we do that? Maybe it's a mystery, but it's like that Jupiter leading us and that Saturn as well. That this is a hard thing. This isn't something that comes easily. And sometimes we have to give up on that logical mind and lean into some of our other senses. These keywords here for this decan of invisible structures, the wandering that's necessary. Sometimes we wander and wander. Maybe we're lost, maybe we're not. Maybe we're heading somewhere, but we learn as we wander. It's a beautiful feeling to just wander and not have an exact plan of where you're going. But again, sometimes there's this balance between the Virgo plan and the Pisces wandering. How often can we let ourselves go and truly just wander? Do you have enough water with you? Are you provided for? There needs to be some Virgo planning to let ourselves go and just wander. And what are the hidden motivations? Did you have a motivation before you set out on your wandering? Are you seeking to find an inner truth in your wandering? And maybe these are some of the things we can think about as we approach this eclipse. And here is the graphic for the moon family. This particular moon family started with a new moon on the 28th of February. All of the moon family falls within this first decan that has this theme of the wandering, the labyrinth, the hidden path. So we've all got this energy of the faith and trust, that surrender being called into play. You might want to think back to that February of 2025 and notice what began around that first date that's coming to a release point now, and what still needs time to unfold as we look ahead to the 28th of May. And maybe that first quarter date of the 28th of November helps you as well, because that was when there was a call to action where you might have reached some decision point. Again, where you had to choose one path or another. That usually is a point where it's being shown to you, where it's a little bit hidden. In February at the new moon, there's no light. But here on the first quarter in November 2025, there is light. The moon is reflecting some of the sun's light. So there's light on what is growing, but it needs some adjustment, some discernment, some decisions being made. That's what would have been happening for you around the 28th of November. And now that it's full moon, there's a culmination and a peak. And again, maybe some decisions to be made on what you're going to continue growing as you look ahead to the last quarter in the 28th of May. And as always, when an eclipse connects with the moon family, that can mean this is an even longer story. So the story might continue on into a second moon family, and that can turn into a 5-year story. So it really helps if we can identify what's being highlighted for us. And this is the work that we do in Celestia Circle as well. You can join that through my Substack, and it's a low monthly cost and includes a live meeting. If you're not able to join, you can get the recording, and you can ask me questions and offer reflections in our Substack chat. And you can also get the workbook free. But you can buy the workbook as well. There'll be a link in the show notes if you want to buy the workbook as a standalone, if you just want to work with the moon families that are actually hitting your chart. And then there'll be useful prompts and the dates as well to guide you through. So this will affect you if you've got mutable or water placements between 2 and 8 degrees. So generally most of the first decan in Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Cancer and Scorpio. And it'll also affect those with Jupiter as their Lord of the Year or as their solar return ascendant. Do let me know if it's affecting you in the comments. So remember, before this eclipse arrives, Mercury's bringing this moment of clarity. Receive it as a gift. If a message arrives to you, look out for the messages. It might be a sign or an omen that arrives to you, something that's familiar that returns. And that will plant a seed for the new cycle of the Mercury-Sun relationship. And then let this release happen that you've been working on for all this time through these eclipses. You don't need to know every step ahead. You're on this hidden path. You're in this maze. So there's a degree of surrender and trust. So we already said that Mercury met the Sun on August the 27th. And this eclipse actually falls in those wee hours of Friday morning for us in the UK, which is where I'm based. But for everybody, it comes a few hours after that meeting of Mercury and the Sun. But it bakes that Cazimi energy into the eclipse, just like the Leo solar eclipse had the Jupiter Cazimi. It feels significant. It's very rare to get these two Cazimis. joining the eclipses, making something really significant. And of course, they're the two rulers of Virgo and Pisces as well. They've both started these new cycles. And it may be that Mercury is the one who's going to bring that message through in this Jupiter-ruled eclipse. So you might be hearing the words that you needed just as you needed them. It might be that a situation hands you a piece of information that changes the picture. Maybe you feel ready to say something that you've been putting off for months. Pay close attention to what keeps circling back that day, the 27th and the 28th. It might show up as a line in a book that keeps drawing your attention, or a dream that's staying with you after you've woken up. Maybe it's a message from somebody you haven't heard from in a while, or a conversation that leaves you with one sentence that's still turning over in your head that you're still rethinking. Or maybe it's not words at all. Maybe you notice your body relax. You know, I like to tune into our bodies and see how they respond when you think about one choice and then when you think about another. See how your body feels about each choice. That's information too. And it's the most valuable information often. Don't rush to turn every sign into a firm prediction. Mercury in Virgo often offers us puzzles. So collect those signs and see how they accumulate rather than seeing the first one and taking that as the final information. See what happened, collect what people have told you, what you've seen. Just make notes of everything and then look back on it. Maybe give yourself a few days because there might be emotion wrapped around it, and give that some space. Mercury is giving you a way to hold the thread and kind of connect those dots, and then look back at everything that happened and see what's running through it. What's the consistent theme that you've got there? Maybe you want to ask yourself what the simplest true sentence is that puts everything together. Again, you're not looking for the whole story. Think again back to that labyrinth, not that perfect explanation that's going to make everybody else understand. Just one sentence that's true for you. Maybe you're tired of carrying something. Maybe you don't want to do something anymore. Maybe you need more time for something, or you need to ask for help. Maybe something really matters to you more than it ever did. And once you know that, then you can think about what practical action in the Virgo part of your chart follows from that. You might need to make a note, send a message to somebody, cancel a commitment, or put a date in your diary. Just keep it really small, manageable, so that it's real. And then you can start a process for yourself. And when we look at this fixed star Fomalhaut, this is a royal star. The 4 original royal stars in each of the fixed signs originally, and with precession, it has now moved to Pisces. This fixed star represents the mouth of the southern fish, and in the old sky pictures, the fish receives the water that's poured from Aquarius. So Aquarius is often seen as the water bearer. And this star carries this feeling of receiving something from beyond your ordinary mind and then giving it a voice. So it's like this inspiration, the muses. Fomalhaut has long been tied to poetry, music, vision, inspired speech. We've often heard how songwriters say that a whole song came to them just in one instant download, and they had to write it down however they were. I mean, it's easier now. We've got our phones and we can just record, but sometimes you're driving or sleeping and it's not practical. And this can be the same for you too. This doesn't happen just for special people, for these celebrities. It's how often we use that muscle to understand that this can happen. And if we trust that this can happen, again, this trust and surrender theme that comes with this decan, if we trust it and listen for it and then act on it. So if something comes to you, you say, right, this was meant for me. I'm going to listen to it. And we engage with humility as well. Trust your own light and understand what's separate from you. Allow yourself to listen and make note of it, and then let yourself speak and create, write and teach it. But listen to that choice that your spirit keeps returning to. Allow credit for what helped bring it through, to your teachers, to the artist who opened a door, to a friend maybe who listened, to your ancestors, to nature, to the divine, the universe, the muse, whatever you call that which is outside of ourselves but talks to us. Keep gratitude alive. That keeps insight from becoming proof that you're somehow special or different. And that awareness that anybody can tap into, it's just knowing that it's there and available for us. And this eclipse is really showing us that way. And that really matters around the time of a Pisces eclipse, because this spiritual language can become a place to hide as well. This is the shadow side of it. You can mistake this strong feeling for a certainty, or take an intuitive flash and build your entire future around it before checking the facts. This is where we have that Virgo side as well, that we don't want to turn an insight into a status and feel like receiving guidance means you're no longer ordinary or flawed or learning or human. So still be inspired, still ask questions, still listen and trust, but still do the mundane work as well that supports it. Be open to receiving these messages and admit when you don't understand what it means, because as I said, they often come as puzzles. It's rare that they come as a full download that we instantly understand. That doesn't weaken the magic, but it lets the magic stay human. It's human to receive things that we don't understand or we can't put together yet. That yet, sometimes adding yet or but to a sentence really helps. I mean, it helps me. It's like, I don't understand this yet, but maybe I will, maybe I won't. So sit with that reflection. What does this mean for you? As Mercury meets the sun and the moon moves through these Fomalhaut's waters, where has inspiration arrived from outside of you? Where have you known that this isn't your voice that's speaking to you? Can you give it proper thanks as well? Can you celebrate it? And what changes when you treat yourself as a participant in that mystery rather than its owner? We're all temporary participants playing our part. But when we come to it humble, I think it's much more open to us. We keep that channel much more healthy and open. And with that clarity in hand, mutable signs might feel this eclipse in very personal ways if you've got mutable planets in this first decan, if you've got angles in this first decan. While the ground keeps shifting and has been, but it will settle as the nodes have now moved on to the Leo Aquarius. So know that you're coming to the end of this time now. So if you know your rising sign, let's look at the mutables, but also for your sun sign too. Let's look at Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, and Sagittarius. So for Pisces rising or Pisces sun, you might find that an old identity, a role, or maybe a coping pattern just feels ready now to fall away. Let it become part of your history that you treasure, but it's no longer part of your present. For Virgo rising or Virgo sun, you may see where care has turned into constant correction, and that gets exhausted, or where your usefulness has become the price of belonging. Make room for your own needs. Can you even identify them? And maybe it's even feeling awkward now, but identify those needs and then make room for them. You're the only person who can do that now. For Gemini rising or Gemini sun, you might receive fast moving news, especially with Uranus there. And Uranus is forming a square to this eclipse. So Uranus is bringing events that might flip the script, that might bring unexpected sudden changes. Gemini people are most likely to feel this disruption. So you may receive fast-moving news or feel mentally overstimulated as Uranus is squaring the eclipse. Let that fresh information settle before you remake the plan. For Sagittarius, Sagittarius rising or Sagittarius sun, you might feel faith meeting the facts. You're always optimistic, but that optimism doesn't disappear when your beliefs need revision. Just allow it the time it needs to change shape. So all four mutable signs, you're used to adapting quickly. That's your superpower. But you don't need to respond to every shift all at once or quickly. Don't feel that pressure. Eclipses take time, but they can be great beginnings and great endings, as Chris Brennan says. Jupiter in Leo is trining Saturn in Aries. So that's giving the ideas that matter a real place in this week and allowing you to start planting seeds that you can really tend. And that's how you navigate these events without losing your footing. For everybody, look for this clarity on August the 27th. And then see what the eclipse is asking, helping you to release or to complete. Where have you trusted that journey? Even when you've wandered far from yourself or far from your normal routine, what can you now leave behind? I will soon be releasing an Astro Mindfulness exercise for this decan of Pisces I, and that's going to help you connect with your breathing and your body and experience more of what this decan has to teach us. So you can look for that in a few days. It will be linked. If you've enjoyed this, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Tell me if you're a Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, or Sagittarius, and if you already know what clarity is arriving for you and what you're ready to release. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your comments. Travel well, friends.